on Monday, April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day.
Well, we're all here.
Yeah,
I know.
we're.
I don't have jokes planned today, guys. I'm sorry. I'm calling to order the Town of Rutland Select Board meeting. We're meeting in the Rutland Public Library, the lower level. We are on Zoom for remote participation, as well as local access television live stream now, as well as reporting for re-airing and on YouTube and other social media outlets as deemed worthy and necessary. If we can start with the pledge, please. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're a four-member board tonight. Unfortunately, Tom is unable to join us. He has a family emergency. So I will go into, we have a public hearing scheduled, but I'll start with the minute, treasury warrant and payroll. I'd take a motion to approve treasury warrant 24-20 and payroll 24-PW20.
Make a motion to approve treasury warrant 24-20 and payroll 24-PW20.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second motion.
Motion and a second. Any questions, comments, concerns? Austin, anything of particular note?
Other than we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year, we paid our last debt assessment. Some line items are getting close to fully expended just by the nature of how they procure supplies and services throughout the year. Some other closeouts that I'll have in my budget request, but other than that, nothing abnormal for this one.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything? Hearing none, roll call, Harry.
Second aye. Mattson aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. We have a pile of minutes, and I think because we had some absences and then Tom's out tonight, I think we're gonna have to go through them one by one. So we have the meeting minutes from the March 4th meeting. This was a joint meeting with FinCom as well as Bay Path and Wachusett for the schools. I believe everyone was present either in person or on Zoom. So I would take a motion to approve the March 14th minutes, sorry.
Make them up. No, go ahead.
We'll give it to you, Paul.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 14th. Spit it out, kid.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
Nope.
Thank you, Tamika. Roll call, Harry.
Second aye. Mattson aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. We have the meeting minutes from March 18th. We have two sets of executive minutes as well as of regular meeting minutes. Everyone was present for these. For the executive session, I think we should hold them for this time. The patrolman, I think the patrolman union, have we been with?
So I separated them
Yeah.
out because one of them was about the wood studio and
Right.
one was about the patrolmans. I assumed you'd wanna hold the patrolmans, but possibly consider the wood studio because of the other two that we had talked about.
Yeah, I was wondering though if we should hold the wood studio everything until after tonight,
Sure.
just that way
do that.
everything goes out. I know we have been back and forth. How does the rest of the board feel about holding the wood studio until approving but not to be released until
That's fine.
kind of after
Yeah.
this last, okay. So we have the two sets of executive session minutes, I would say not to be released at this time, as well as the regular meeting minutes. If no one has any objections or corrections to any of them, we could do them as a batch because everyone was present and we just would not release the executive sessions at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve March 18th, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented and executive session, both sets of executive session meeting minutes not to be released at this time.
Is there a second?
Second
I
motion.
just have one comment.
Yeah.
On the one for February 20th,
Yes,
You have March 4th down here instead of March 1st? Do we have a meeting March 4th?
yes, we met March 4th.
Huh?
March 4th was our
Oh,
meeting,
I'm
March 1st
thinking
was a
of-
Friday.
I'm thinking of, okay. Thank you.
And sorry, I held those two just because the sorry, we have a motion and a second for the March 18th, sorry, so let's
Yep,
go with
sorry.
those, sorry, no, roll call, Harry,
Second I.
Matt's and
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. We have the February 20th executive session meeting minutes, which I think we can do. Harry, I believe, was absent, and Tom's not here to vote, but if Jen, Paul and I are amenable to approving not for release at this time, we could do that also.
Oh, if that's the case, then these minutes were already approved.
Oh,
And last time we talked about
when
releasing
to
those
release them.
specific
Release,
sets,
yeah.
yeah, so you've already approved them.
Thank you.
If you wanna hold
For
on
all of
releasing.
these, yeah, that's why I was confused, I was like, I thought we'd been up to date, so.
Sorry,
No,
yeah.
that's my fault. So I think if the board's amenable after tonight's meeting, I think then next meeting I would be amenable to releasing all the executive session meeting minutes for that.
Okay.
We have a public hearing meeting scheduled for 6 p.m. I will open the public hearing at 6:06 p.m. This is for the seasonal liquor license, Varahi Foods Inc., doing business as Rutland Marketplace at 26 Pumagusset Road. We had spoken about this previously, and they have submitted all of their materials and have internal approvals through the Vision and everything. Viewpoint. I'm like, what is it?
All those
Sorry.
Vs.
Yeah, too many Vs. And so we have the public hearing here in case anyone from the public is interested in commenting or has questions or concerns or anything. The seasonal liquor license would allow the marketplace to be able to sell select points of hard alcohol in addition to their malt and beer, wine, and malt liquor license seasonally. So, is there anyone here for comments? Did you wanna speak? Sorry, do you wanna speak to
Oh,
it?
no, I'm just here to
Address anything?
Address anything if anybody else had a question, you know.
Thank you. Does anyone from the board have any questions or concerns or anything?
This is a full liquor license?
They already have a full liquor license, so this is in addition to that liquor license. And this is one of those unique situations where the state allows them to hold two licenses on the same property.
Okay.
So their current license allows for beer and wine malt beverages, and then this is I forget the dates off the top of my head, Tamika.
April 1st through December 31st of each calendar year, they'll be able to offer all alcoholic beverages. And then the rest of the year, they would offer just the wine and malt under their normal full retail license.
And we had spoken, oh, go ahead.
I just wonder why it's just a seasonal thing. I mean, I don't have any objection to it, that's
So
fine, but
I can answer to that, ma'am. So the state only has limited license per city and it's based on the population of the city. So let's say Rutland has 2. The quota can't go up unless the population increases. But the state, like she said, allows you to have a seasonal where you aren't eligible for the whole year, annual year, but for that from April 1st to December 31st, you're able to sell. So it's just based on the quota the state has per city.
so when the population goes up, you'll be
Yeah.
able to get a full one?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, okay.
They assign you a quota of different types of liquor licenses, and once so many businesses reach that maximum, nobody else is allowed to apply for that specific type unless that business closes, or as he said, the population increases. So every year when we renew the licenses, the state asks for the estimated seasonal population from that following July, and then that's how they decide if they're gonna increase your quota
Okay.
or not. So,
All right.
it's a complicated
So it's like
process.
2.5 licenses you give out, or
little bit,
however
yeah.
many. Oh, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
And I know we had spoken before, we don't have any bylaws about the nips, and we know from the residents and everything that that's a big concern, just the ways that the litter and everything on the side of the road. So I know we had spoken about if, we can't tell you how to do business, but as a good neighbor.
So one thing about the seasonal thing is that you never want to or will be able to do what a full liquor store does, because remember, at December 31st, we either have to start cutting back our inventory or put it away. So, it's never gonna be a point where we're like full line where the nips and stuff is absolutely not on our mind. And even if it is just few popular choices, but I mean, we would recommend all our customers and, or we can put a sign that says, do not litter or something like that, but we don't have it planned out if we're gonna have it either,
No, and I appreciate that. I know we periodically have had residents come in with bins full of nips that
Yes,
they've
it's a problem
collected
in
and
Massachusetts everywhere.
until we have a bylaw or something
Yes, ma'am.
in place, then that's just, as a good kind of faith neighbor,
We'll
we
definitely
appreciate
keep
it.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for
I have just a quick, I know this is the first one of these that we've had. Is there anything in particular policy-wise that we need to add to? Like, is this a one-time for this case, or is this something that we'd be offering for other
So
businesses as well?
this is something we could offer for other businesses as well. We were chatting on the way in, and he did raise a good point about whether or not we would allow seasonal licenses for businesses that do not already hold some form of retail liquor license. So I wanted to go back and read MGL a little bit more closely to figure that out, but we are working on the policies as a whole related to our liquor, and so we can adopt something that's more comprehensive and equitable for everybody. So that's definitely a consideration as we're working on that.
And I know previously when we had the conversation about the fees and everything as to what's equitable for the amount of time and everything also, so
Yes, and we did add that to our fee schedule online as well.
good question. Anyone else?
How many of these do we give out a year, or can we give out a year?
So I have to remember, so if it's off premise is based on your seasonal quota. On premise has no limit, which seems backwards, but that's how I remember it, is because it seems
Okay.
backwards, yeah.
So I would, if there's no other conversation about this, I would take a motion to close the hearing.
Make a motion, we close the hearing.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I. Whitman I. 6:13. And then, does the board have any other deliberation or anything? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the seasonal liquor license for Rutland Marketplace as presented. So moved. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any conversation about it? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I. Whitman I. Thank you.
Thank you so
And thanks for working with us and bringing it
Thank you so
as our
much.
attention as an option.
Now
and
back to
everything.
work.
So, unfortunately, everyone, we're gonna kick you out if the board is amenable to going into executive session. I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session for reason number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Topic, discussion of disposition plan for 232 Main Street, the Franklin T. Wood House.
So moved.
Good motion, is there a second?
Second motion.
Motion, Paul, second.
We don't have to be asked twice.
Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Ladies,
Paul.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. So we're back in open session at 6:53 PM. Thanks for your patience. Sorry it was longer than 10 minutes as we thought. I will preclude doing member comments and announcements unless there's anything of major importance. I know Eclipse is next week on Monday. We will have a decent coverage here, so just be mindful and safe and aware. Anyone else? I believe we probably have a lot of folks here for public comment. So I will open up for public comment.
Hi.
Name and address and
Sabrina Heinaloma, 17 Edson Ave. And you go with me.
Oh, Kelly Briggs, 11 Highland Park Road.
So I'm here as a representative of Central Tree Middle School PTO. We've many years past, had a spring craft fair at the school as a fundraiser for the school. And it went by the wayside with COVID, and now we're hoping to bring it back, but we're hoping to do it outdoors this year. It's gonna be a rain or shine event, so we'll have to pivot and have the vendors be inside, if it does rain, because we are planning on having food trucks. So we're having, Morosky barbecue, fired up pizza, and baked all day, because they're all Rutland families. So, and they're gonna give a percentage of their sales back to the PTO as well. And then, in coordination with that, in the beginning, we're gonna do a 5K, which is Kelly's their permits. So we just wanted to come and tell you about the event and see if you had any questions about it.
it's scheduled for May
18th,
and that's a Saturday?
yes. The race would start at 9 a.m. and the event would run to 3 p.m.
Does the board have any questions, or I think it's great. I'm super excited to see that it's back and kind of outside and getting, touching a lot of different pieces of the community. Cause I know sometimes 5Ks are a lot of fun and tough because either the timing or whatever, and the food truck piece and the vendor fair piece are.
Yeah, we just figure, people will be congregating to watch it, and then they'll all end up back there and they can just have, a nice day.
And it's long enough that if sports or whatever are going on, people can pop in, grab lunch or
Yeah.
do some shopping
Yep.
or whatever and
Yep.
not feel like they have to spend an entirety of
The day there,
Okay.
yeah.
Where's the actual location? Is it at the middle school?
Central Tree Middle School,
It is?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if it goes indoors, then we'll do what we did in the past. Obviously, no alcohol inside the school, but it'll be in the gym and the caf and everything. The food trucks will stay outside, and we'll just have like a tented area for people to sit if it rains.
I have a question through the chair
Yeah.
to Sabrina, cause that weekend, I'm like, either there's 5 things going on or I'm confusing, they're all the same thing. Because on Saturday the 18th, I've got the spring fair, which the Historical Society is putting on the Common with Bob Locke.
Is that the 19th?
No, the
or the 18th? Well-
19th is the community fair at
Oh, that's right,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
community cen-
Yeah.
So is this 18th the same? You're
It is the
working with the
same.
Historical?
We're not working with the Historical Society. We had this like earmarked for a while because it was the only date that worked for us.
Right.
And then we had to wait to come to a meeting, and then we did see that the Historical Society was doing something that day.
Cause they got food trucks too or something,
Yeah, but it's
that's why
different
I'm-
trucks, but I think it makes it even better because you can go, like, you're already here,
Just gonna say,
so you
yeah.
can go up there, now go up there, so it's
Alright,
it's
so
a great weekend in Rutland.
Yeah, and then that
Yeah.
community thing the next day with all the
The
business.
next day on the 19th,
Okay.
yeah.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
I was just gonna add, when I learned that they were both having the event on the same day, I did reach out to Chief Monaco to see if he had any concerns with traffic or parking, and he said he is not concerned, and he will have staff to help if needed.
And Kelly reached out regarding the road race
Yep.
too.
They already said that was fine.
I think if you guys are amenable to kind of looping in the Historical Society and the
100%.
Historical Society is amenable to looping in you guys, I think it can be a super
yeah.
great
Yeah,
weekend for
We shut down Main Street, a
everybody.
big block
big block party. And I think it's great because
Talk to Nick about that, Austin.
sometimes when the Historical Society has things, like, it's not as well attended as we want it to be, so I think this way it'll be like
yeah.
even better, because people will be passing it on the way, or they'll be leaving ours and see theirs, and it'll be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great, so I appreciate it. I'm all for it. I'll probably be up and around and everything. I love the food trucks and
Yeah.
the shopping. I'm not quite
It'll raise a
runner,
lot of
but
money for
I
the
tried. So yeah, I think, typically we don't do motions of support,
Yeah, I think I
but
just more or
mean-
less wanted to let you guys know what was going on and just to make sure that permit wise, I think the only thing that I'd need would be one for Seven Saws, cause I think the food trucks that we're having already have everything squared away with you guys.
And just be mindful, I'm not sure what the policy is, Chief Monaco might be able to assist with that, with the alcohol on school property, where that delineation is.
Yeah, cause Naquag had it for the Rutland Food Truck Festival,
Right,
so
right.
I figured there was something there.
Right, yep. So,
I'll
yeah,
check
and
with
the
them.
food trucks should all be licensed already through the town.
Yep.
And that goes through Board of Health, so it would be Seven Saws coming for us for a 1-day
Yep.
Permit. So, very good. Anyone else? Thank you so much,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very good, and if we can maybe kind of advertise, put it on the community part of the calendar, with the
Yeah.
Historical Society one as well.
I'll start posting
Um,
tonight, you know.
Sabrina, I know if you have spare time and can, if the society is amenable to kind of doing a joint flyer or something.
Yeah, I'll
also,
definitely throw it on there.
it would be good.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you guys for doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I know the kids are gonna love it, so
They should have fun.
thank you. Anyone else here for public comment? Name and address, please.
Karen Greenwood, 7 Breezy Lane, here in Rutland. And I know you were just an executive session about, but I'm not even sure what I should be saying, cause I don't know what you discussed, if there's been a conclusion, because some of us are losing sleep at night, seriously, wondering what is gonna happen, because we've all put in Austin, and all of you know what we put into it, so we've just been, am I in agreement? I'm not the only one that's been a wreck about
So
this,
would
right?
the board be
So-
amenable to taking that item out of order after, if there's anyone else for public comment? And that might clear up some of public comment, and then if you choose to stay, you are more than welcome to stay, but you also don't need to stay.
You talking about D
Taking the Franklin T. Woodhouse discussion.
or A? Yeah.
Is there anyone else here for public
That's fine.
comment?
No problem.
Karen, no. Okay. Hearing none,
I spoke for everybody.
then I would be, if the board's amenable, I would be willing to take the new item A, Franklin T. Woodhouse discussion of future plans of the Woodhouse out of order. Everyone's amenable to that. So I know there's been a lot of stress and anxiety about this. I think probably unnecessarily and unintentionally, some of it is lost in the wording of procurement law. And so it came up in December, this board voted unanimously to write a letter of support to support the Historical Society to get the Woodhouse put on the Registry of Historic Buildings. Through that process, it came out that in order to do that, there needed to be at least some sort of an arrangement that the society had longer term, with the town for the society to do that. The current lease had been expired by 12 years, I believe. And so that kind of then triggered all of us into figuring out what we could do and how we could do it. And working with the town administrator and knowing what some of our audit findings and everything have been, that we really needed to follow procurement law, Mass General 30B, and how we could do that. Unfortunately, the term used in procurement law is disposition of property, and that tends to have a negative connotation in that you're getting rid of it. And getting rid of it could also be entering into some sort of agreement or something. So we've had, Austin's continued to do some digging, kind of at the push of the board and as well as the public, and has found, I think, an amenable agreement for everyone. The board would be willing, I hope the board would vote or make a motion, I would accept a motion to authorize the town administrator to negotiate with the Historical Society a grant agreement and occupancy agreement not to exceed 3 years for the Woodhouse at 232 Main Street. So we have a motion.
Second.
Well,
Just
I would.
before we do that, can, Austin, do you mind just giving a little summary for the folks in the room, what that is and why it's different from 30B, so that we didn't know about this prior to not that long ago when Austin found it, so I just wanna have you just describe exactly what it is and what it allows us to do.
Sure, so as the chair kind of indicated, typical procurement law, when you're talking about disposing of, which again, that's a really awful term, but that's the term. Real property, which real estate, the Woodhouse is considered real property, there's typically processes. You either have to go out to bid, or as I think I've mentioned to all of you, there's a request for proposals process. And that's the formal procurement process that we virtually follow for everything. However, there's some tools within Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, which are not typically talked about, and this is one, it's called a grant agreement. And I'll just read the definition of it. And when you hear this, you're gonna say, oh, that's perfect. A grant agreement is an agreement between a governmental body and an individual or nonprofit entity, the purpose of which to carry out a public purpose of support or stimulation instead of procuring supplies or services for the benefit or use of the governmental body. So, hypothetically, well, not hypothetically, I think a motion was just made on the floor, the town could enter into a grant agreement with the Historical Society for the purpose of providing a public historical museum for the community. And along with that, the town can have some other conditions in the agreement, but allows for us to directly work with you to be able to continue occupying the building and providing the public service that which you've done for a long time now. This is, again, not a common tool, but we did check with the Inspector General's office, and it is something that we're eligible to provide and work with you on. So happy to answer any questions on that if you have anything.
And I think if I may, so it's multi-year, we said not to exceed 3 years in this because I think this board feels strongly, and based on procurement law, it's best practice, for some procurement, it's mandatory to go before town meeting for anything to exceed 3 years. So for right now, that's not off the table, but we don't have it on the warrant for this upcoming town meeting. And so we set a term not to exceed 3 years. That gives some time to see what's working, what's not working, and everything as well. So whether that's 1, 2, or 3 years, it's some negotiation ability there as well. So I don't know if that was gonna be.
For me, that was something that even if we could have only had 1 year, so that we could have gotten the necessary paperwork done and get it on a warrant to take it to the town.
Yep.
So that was, because I know that, well, I'd be awfully disappointed if the town didn't support, I don't know what kind of response you got from the survey, but I'm guessing that it was pretty positive.
I saw a lot of people named Green on the survey.
So,
Yeah, so and we will look at the survey data. We obviously heard the public outcry, but it wasn't our intent. There was no ill intent from the board or the administration in this process. It's unfortunately, we probably could have done a better job describing the language and why we were using the language that we were doing, and also understanding that it wasn't from ill intent. You know, this board had unanimously supported a letter to get it on the registry in working with the society and everything, so, yeah.
It was never ever discussed that there would be any, nobody wanted the Historical Society to leave that building. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to all the residents where this is important to, that was never what we really wanted to see.
I just would like to make one more comment. I know the town administrator was getting a lot of heat because he's the one that discovered the problem that we had. And I had total faith that you would come up with something. And he did. I'm just so, and my thing was as a new administrator, he had to come in, he had to figure out what his job was. And because of circumstances, we were in a position that he had to make a decision. And, you know, I just wanna thank you so much for coming up with an alternative for us. Because like Karen said, a lot of sleepless nights for us on the, that belong to the Historical Society. And I appreciate your due diligence that you found
Well,
a
thank you.
solution.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
For the research.
And for you listening
Yeah,
to them.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would entertain a motion to authorize town administrator to negotiate a grant agreement and occupancy agreement with the Historical Society for the Wood House at 232 Main Street, not to exceed 3 years.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody's in, so we go. We have a motion and a second. Any other conversation amongst the board? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. And I think, Tamika, if you can send a letter of communication out to the society, just so that they're all, I'm sure that they're gonna know before we're out of our meeting tonight.
5 minutes, yeah. There's social media.
Telephone, telegraph, telecarine.
They're all waiting.
Yeah, so thank you, and again, my sincerest apologies for the stress and anxiety that it's caused. It was not the intent of this board or, like I said, the administration at all to do that, and you know, we can learn from our mistakes and.
In the rumor mill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah.
rumor mill hasn't helped, social
No,
media
yeah,
has
oh,
not
yeah,
helped at all.
right.
I will say it was the most well-attended coffee talk that I had at the senior center. So we have to figure out what next month's controversy is.
And probably the best attended survey or the best
Yeah.
response survey also, so thank you for
Thank
your
you.
passion and your support and everything also. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have a much better night tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna sleep tonight.
Is there anyone else for public comment? I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We can go into the town administrator update. And that's you.
Good evening, thank you very much. I know we've got some other important topics that we'll talk about, especially the budget. Just wanna roll through a couple of things. Just on personnel, we did hire a skilled laborer for the Public Works Department, Nick Laporte. He's expected to start over the next few weeks. His primary focus will be supporting the many needs of our facilities and grounds crews. He's had a lot of experience as in carpentry and some kind of general labor work. I think he'll be a great addition to the DPW crew. Still ongoing, working with the Treasurer Collector's Office and the Finance Department to reorganize and leverage the staff. We've talked a lot about making sure that the Finance Department is kind of fully empowered, has the resources. There's probably, I'm gonna round up and say 20 days that are some of the craziest days for the Finance Department. And I need to make sure that all 3 departments have adequate resources that they need. And I know we've been talking about this, and I've talked with some of you individually about this too. We met with the finance team, we sought feedback from members of the organization that work closely with the office. I believe we're in a position now where we have a good understanding of what the treasurer collector's position and job description really should look like. Because as you know, we've also added some components to the team, whether it's adding to the town administrator's office, HR director, coordinator, adding more personnel in the treasurer collector's office altogether with a payroll and AP assistant, another 15 hours to offset some of the work that Becky and Lisa have done over the years. So we've modified the description again to be a little bit more reflective on kind of the 2024 needs of the treasurer collector's office. The nominations for the Town Employee of the Year award closed on March 22nd. As you know, this was a goal of the select board to assist with improving staff morale. We received 15 nominations for various members of town staff. We'll be reviewing those and selecting 2 employees, one from the general government side and one from public safety. The awardees will be announced before town meeting, but they'll be formally introduced to the public and awarded their Employee of the Year awards at the annual town meeting in May. Some ongoing recruitments, we're looking for an equipment operator for DPW, and we're looking for a water operator 3 for the water department at DPW. Any questions on personnel?
Just a quick question related.
Sure, yep.
Semi-budget, for the equipment operator, water operator, are those all existing budgeted
Yeah.
roles?
Yep.
Okay, so not anything that would add on.
Yeah, typically, so kind of the way that we budget, especially for new positions or vacant positions, we'll budget at the highest step. So for water operator 3, we actually are backfilling a water operator 2 position, but we've budgeted for top step 3, just so we have some budget capacity there. Same thing for equipment operator as well.
Thank you.
And the need for a water operator 3, we are requiring T3 certification. Most of the people that are gonna be having those certifications are gonna fall within that water operator 3, it's better pay. So we found when we were advertising for the 2 position, we weren't getting quality candidates within that certain pay range. We upgraded the advertisement to be a little bit more competitive for the water department.
She asked the question I was going to, Jen did, and that is that already been booked into the 2025 payroll?
Yes.
I'd like to touch on, I'm confused, Austin, so I guess it's me. I'm confused on the treasurer's position. We had a committee put together so they could decide on a new treasurer. We had an applicant, I believe that was recommended by the committee, and you didn't hire the person. And then we brought in a temporary, and now we're looking to split between us and.
Well, hold on, before you touch on that, we're touching on some things that were discussed in executive session.
Oh, maybe
So
that's.
I'd be happy to talk about.
No, okay, that's why I read it was in the executive session
Yeah,
piece there.
yeah.
Okay, all right, I don't wanna bring that up. But, so, we can discuss that at another executive session maybe next week, 'cause I'm confused how the process works, cause I don't understand it.
Well, so the recruitment process, and I'll speak, let's just say more generally overall on recruitment, retention overall of municipal employees. Municipal finance employees are some of the most challenging employees to find. To be clear, for this treasurer collector's position, I didn't hire the person rejected our offer.
I just wanna caution that
Yeah,
we stay very general because it wasn't a publicly announced individual, and so I don't wanna harm that any current or future
That's right.
opportunities for anyone.
So maybe it'd be better if we take it to executive session so I could get a better understanding.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or I
So
mean,
we
even,
can put that the next time, doesn't have to be now,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll do it next time.
but I think also having conversations with Austin also, but I think Austin, if you wanna just kind of continue more generally, kind of the process that recommendation also then leads to negotiations.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so like with every position, we go through the recruitment process. For this one, we had a committee that was involved and provided the recommendation for the employee. For the candidate. I interviewed the candidate, offered the position based off of what we had for where the position was classified along our wage scale, some other perks and benefits that you offer in a general sort of negotiating position. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And unfortunately, with such a crucial position, I had to make sure that we had that office filled. So like what was done with the planner's position, like what was done with town administrator's position several times, we hired an interim. The interim, obviously, we went out for request for services. I talked with two individuals, 2 firms, and we selected Steve to be the interim treasurer collector at a rate that I believe is much more competitive than what we could have gotten on the open market. Just to give you an idea, our interim planner was making $90 an hour. We had a previous interim town administrator, one was $65 an hour. We had another interim town administrator, when you do the math, for 24 hours a week, for what we were paying him per day was $114 an hour. So we can get really into the several $100s an hour when we get into municipal finance. We're paying Steve $75 an hour for almost 40 hours of work.
40?
Yeah.
that information then on my end.
Yeah, stop by around 7:30 most days and he's the only car in the parking lot.
Okay.
And naturally, when you're, coming new onto the position, he spent a little bit more than 40 hours getting up to speed. He spent a lot of time with Becky, kind of getting up to speed on how we do things in Rutland. But I think we're, as a municipality, right, we're not totally competitive for what we can afford. So there's other things, right? We have a great benefits package. We have some flexibility for scheduling, right? We're buildings are closed on Friday, so there's a lot of things about Rutland that can make us competitive. But we probably don't even compete with our next door neighbor in Holden. We definitely don't compete with Shrewsbury and some of the others in the Central Mass region. So that is going to continue to be a challenge of Rutland, especially for this really important department of treasurer collector finance altogether. So when we talk about some other proposed solutions, like what we've talked about in some other meetings or informal discussions, is maybe thinking a little bit differently about how we provide treasurer collector services. And that's all I'll say, and we can have, happy to talk more about that offline if you want to.
Thank you.
Does that clarify? I know you had some.
There's still some questions, but we can take that in executive
Okay.
session.
Or again, Harry, feel free to stop by anytime, I can answer your questions too.
Okay.
Just to roll quickly through some more things I mentioned, the audit at the last meeting was nearing completion. The audit is now complete. Financial statements for both our general fund, our general and enterprise funds, and then we also had a single audit due to our ARPA expenditures. That audit will be shared at the next board meeting. We'll discuss this later, but I'm providing my final recommendations per conversations with FinCom for the FY25 budget and capital plan. As noted in your packet, the final proposal includes $250,000 in free cash and just over $467,000 in ARPA. We'll get obviously more detail into that, but just want to make sure that's in the report. And then working on a new practice, we'll be starting to meet with department heads individually to review their budget to expense reports as we're closing out or getting close to closing out FY24. Want to make sure that we're planning ahead for any necessary transfers, whether it's reserve fund, line item transfers. Want to make sure that we're doing well on our budget monitoring and hopefully projecting any potential turnbacks for the organization as well. I mentioned at the last meeting the public safety and library roof repair project came approximately $20,000 higher than budgeted. As noted in my request for ARPA, I'll be requesting to fill that gap for this necessary project from ARPA funds.
If I might?
Sure.
If I may. 22,000 higher, was that based on the quote that they gave us? Like last year, is it because of material increases, it was harder to get fixed than we thought? Why is there
I think
was
it's
it like a 10% increase, 5%?
So, I don't know the percentage at the top of my head. So ARPA, the previous allocation was 270. I believe at the time from the engineering estimates that would have provided a $10,000 to $15,000 buffer, if you will, for contingency. And just overall materials, labor, 2024 construction economy, it's higher than anticipated. We also received one bid, so it really wasn't a competitive. Yeah, really wasn't a competitive bidding process, unfortunately, for this one.
And I can't speak specifically for this, but I know oftentimes the library roof here ends up, people can look at it from one angle and then once they're up there and see something, it tends to go up a little bit, unfortunately, based on just the construction of the building itself.
But they're all finished now, they're done, they're good?
No, so again, I'll be requesting board's approval to fill that gap from ARPA. So I can sign that contract and get that project started.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The third filter at the water treatment plant is finally back online after several delays in supplies. This will greatly assist the water department in their overall treatment. We were running on 2 filters for well over a year. So you can imagine filling up those 2 water tanks just with 2 filters places significant strain on the facility, so great to have that back. That was a substantial reconstruction project for the water department over the summer and winter. had some conversations with Director Kolosky, working on identifying a pavement plan for 2024. We were fortunate this year in FY !24 to also receive additional approximately $300,000 in Chapter 90 funds from the Fair Share Amendment revenue. That gives us about $500,000, if not a little bit more, in Chapter 90 funds. So this is a really good year to get a lot of good work done on roads, sidewalks, any other municipal infrastructure that is eligible for Chapter 90. So we'll be releasing a bid for an overall paving contract for the paving season. And then based off of that plan, essentially just getting as much as we can done. And once that plan is complete, with Director Kolosky, we'll present that to your board for review and any comments and questions that you have as well.
If I might?
Sure.
One vendor, is that the only person that applied, or?
No, so we haven't put that out to bid yet, but typically it means we just contract with the supplies and services from one person. So when we're ready to go, we call them and we say, hey Harry, we're ready to do Main Street. And they schedule it and the price is already fixed, so we don't have to go out to bid every time. This is pretty common, especially when you have a plan, so that's why it's really critical to make sure that every year we're planning for the use of these funds. So right around this time of the year, we go out to bid and then we know exactly what we're gonna get for that year in terms of paving. So it's not kind of like, we'll do what we can kind of thing.
And if you have one company putting a bid in for kind of everything, then they might price it better or be willing to work with you more.
It's a lot easier when they know that, just for example, they know that they're gonna get $500,000 than, you know, I think the Wachusett Street was like $50,000 or something, small job. And then just one final thing, there's nothing included in your packet for this, but just an upcoming discussion point. We've been working with town departments on formalizing and developing a use of town facilities policy. I just wanna put this on your radar. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns that you'd wanna be considered in this policy, I wanna make sure that I have those and put those in the draft policy for you to review and approve. What this means is, you know, whether it's the library, whether it's town fields, whether it's the community/senior center, we wanna make sure that there's a proper policy and an application process for members of the community to be able to utilize the facilities. Lots of towns do this. I don't think we've historically done it. I think we have an informal practice or policy, but my recommendation is to formalize this and advertise it to the community and other town organizations that they can use public buildings. Obviously, there's rules and regulations that come with those. You know, you can't like have a bonfire in the basement of the library. Totally wouldn't be appropriate. If you do, there's a security deposit. We're gonna keep it. But just wanna put this on your radar that this will be an upcoming discussion point for you guys.
And I think if I may, Austin, we have still outstanding the financial policies and the HR policies, which I asked to bump off of this agenda because I thought we had a lot to discuss this agenda. But I would like to try to get them kind of through. I know some of our goals and objectives were the bylaw piece, which we've done, and also the policy piece, which we need to hopefully make.
You guys are almost there on reviewing the personnel policies. We have like 2 more chapters left on those.
I might ask a question. First off, under budget and finance, I like the idea, I think it's a long time coming, where you will look at the budget to expense reports and discuss that with the different departments. I guess my feeling is if you're giving a department a 10 or a 12% increase and they still come back and ask for more money, something's wrong. Okay, either they didn't allocate properly, expenses were not out of control, or something. So I'm glad that you are doing that to hold kind of their feet to the fire, if you will, to look at what an issue might be. So I commend you for that.
Anything else for Austin? Thank you. Under old business, we have ARPA requests. So I think Austin, you'll present.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So as I mentioned in my update, first and foremost, requesting the use of $467,526.68. as a revenue source for the FY 2025 budget. This is based off of a conversation again with the finance committee about use of free cash and essentially filling the gap with ARPA. Now, I think we went through several finance committee meetings about what level of free cash I think they're comfortable with, but also they believe that the community would be comfortable with. After evaluating, I think where we are in terms of available ARPA funds, necessary projects, and then also what we need to fill the gap. That is my first request from ARPA is to utilize those revenues again to balance the budget for FY 25. Also on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, whatever page that is, I have a list of ARPA projects that I'm proposing and asking the board to support. There's about $1 million left of ARPA that is unobligated, essentially unspent money. The projects that listed here, and I'm happy to roll through them quickly just so you have them on the record, include projects like repairing the roof at the library and the public safety building, $292,000 there. Some building upgrades to community hall, looking to get some office space in community hall, I'm asking for $10,000 there. Municipal services facility feasibility study, this was included in the capital budget, but asking for ARPA to accelerate getting that project started. Essentially what we're asking is for a feasibility study for town hall / senior center. We discussed this, I think, in also previous budget meetings. Those two studies combined equal $35,500. So asking the board to support that. With the transition in treasurer collector's office, we had retirement payout, we had costs associated with just overall transition of the treasurer collector, Becky Tuttle, and then also any funds necessary to close out the year for the interim treasurer collector services. I added a buffer, but I just wanted to be secure to make sure that we had enough. I'm asking for $40,000 in ARPA revenue, ARPA money to cover the treasurer collector services for the remaining of this fiscal year. Again, so the previous select boards also utilized ARPA to cover interim services, actually covered the services for both Mr. Kelleher and myself at the close of fiscal year 23, just so you guys know that. $18,000 for contractual services for personal property valuation. This was actually already approved by the select board previously, but this again is just in the final spending plan. That contract has already been signed, it's already obligated. RRC, you may have seen them out and about, they've actually already started conducting personal property valuation services. There's two projects for the public health and Board of Health. Contractual services for the public health nurse and support staff. This is Peg Sullivan, our nurse, our individual that provides nursing services. Greatly accelerated during the pandemic, but also there's still COVID's still a thing, flu's still a thing, so we're asking for funds to support the public health nurse and support staff services. And also vaccine clinic and supports, community support supplies. Again, this is funding that was previously approved by the select board, so keeping this in the ARPA spending plan. And then the top two projects, broadband infrastructure. We currently have a contract with Spectrum for town internet services. I'm asking for funding to continue that contract through the remaining of this calendar year. And then you'll see $40,000 in ARPA requested. Those are costs associated with taking ownership of the network again. Currently, right now, we do not own our wireless network, our fiber network. We're actually leasing the equipment from Spectrum. You can see why there's a substantial cost there. We're spending about $6,200 a month on internet services. This $40,000 will acquire all the infrastructure for us, and we'll be spending $2,000 a month. So some cost savings and also just realizing some efficiencies. Right now, we have some challenges with not owning the network. So for example, this laptop actually can't print from it on the town network because it's not approved by Spectrum. If we own the network, we can authorize what devices are eligible to be utilized on the network, and I'm sure every other department has experienced some challenges there,
I
so.
was against this from the beginning,
Were you?
yes. All right, and I tried to convince the board last year, and Carol would not listen to me, so I just said, okay.
Yeah.
And it went through. and Charter Spectrum, pardon me, does not give you anything for nothing.
So this, one thing too, I just wanna note on the $40,000 request. It's my intent to utilize that as a matching fund source for the municipal fiber grant to expand our fiber network to municipal owned fiber network to the water treatment plant, the schools, and the community center. So all town buildings will be on the municipal fiber network, and we own it.
Once we take on the ownership of that, we have a group that can take care of that for us, fix it, repair it, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that's typically covered in our, we have a contractual agreement with CM Geeks that provides our IT services. So as long as we maintain kind of in our capital budget, you know, a certain amount per year on replacing and maintaining capital equipment, that'll just be included in that
Okay.
plan.
That's what I'm sure, cause once we take it over,
Yeah.
something goes, like, now that they can set your computer up to print, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, all those projects equal up to just over $1 million. That would completely, in terms of the federal government, that would completely obligate all of the ARPA funds. We don't have to worry about it. After December 31st of this year, we're contracted, obligated, and spent. I forgot one thing. One critical thing. You'll notice, second from the bottom, offset for FY 2024 educational assessment of $101,000. As previously discussed with the board, that was a proposal to spend some ARPA funds for this year to force some free cash.
Yeah.
So by doing such, we know that we'll start automatically next year with about $100,000 in free cash.
So there is $100,000 left after all of this?
Yep.
So I think this touches on, it touches on a little bit of kind of everybody's wants and needs. I think it addresses some of CIPC's concerns, closes out some of the things that we had, previous boards had allocated funds to, but the cost has changed or whatever. And then helps with this year's budget, so we're not looking at significant cuts or having to raise revenue. And we had discussed also about clearing as much to free cash as possible to then return to free cash in the fall to allow free cash conversations rather than just a 5-member board conversation. Austin, I know you and I kind of spoke a little bit about some of these where there's that we have been using kind of year over year with the COVID stuff and everything, that there's a plan to be able to maintain that in the budget going forward. I think
just on, especially for the, I apologize, Madam Chair, especially for those two, the public health services, those, we had a discussion during the budget process to make sure that those costs associated with those services, those are in the proposed FY 25 budget.
Is that supplies or salary?
Both.
And I was reading the article from Wachusett that the school committee sent around, and one of the issues was the nursing facilities, that they don't have the adequate staff they should have. Now, is this person bouncing around between schools too, or is this strictly COVID?
No, so this is more just for the general community, so PEG oftentimes, so I don't know if you know this, but if you go to the doctor's office and report some sort of communicable disease, the town actually ends up finding out about it. And PEG is kind of the one that follows up with you from a town's perspective and says, hey Harry, I heard such and such happened, do you need any resources, things like that. That was really prevalent during the pandemic when we were getting notifications, I don't know if you got it on your phone, hey, you've been exposed to COVID. They've created this infrastructure that allows for public health departments and boards of health to provide these services. So she also does some other clinical support for members of the community, but this, to my knowledge, doesn't provide any nursing services to students.
as far as she works with the Board of Health and our health agent, I think primarily. It's a Board of Health position. But I also know, to your point, Austin, that there's been like an uptick in certain communities of STDs, STIs, and that's a reporting mechanism also. So it's not
she's
just
also
COVID.
playing a role in, you've probably seen some news articles about, Commonwealth of Massachusetts sued such and such opioid company or opioid manufacturers or distributors. She's also, we've had some discussions and meetings about utilizing opioid settlement funds for programs, offering Narcan to folks who need it. So she's also involved in kind of that aspect of public health for kind of the opioid educational.
Do we get opioid monies?
We do.
We do,
We just got about 5,000, give or take, dollars this year.
okay.
So I think Austin would be looking for a motion. Austin, are you comfortable with a motion to allocate ARPA as presented, or would you prefer individual motions for the individual?
Yeah, maybe just motion to approve the ARPA spending plan as presented.
If the board is amenable, I mean, if there's additional conversations, by all means, let's.
I just wanna clarify one thing,
Sure.
and I know this is other budget question, but I need to know just to, the capital improvement and, that you have on the chart in here. Or, it lists the tower, the ladder truck, the feasibility study, and for the schools, we have the security system.
Yes.
The security system, we're still planning to fund out of free cash.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
right, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't getting mixed because of.
Yeah, so that's on page 3 of your packet here, the proposed capital budget of $2.3 million and the funding sources associated with that are all in their respective columns.
And everything here that's in this chart is still included as part of the budget.
Yep.
Got a question on using free cash to fund the stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund. We're looking at putting $37,893 into it this year.
Yes.
However, we're looking to
Taking out
take
some.
65,000 out.
Yep.
Or 60,000 out, no, yeah, 60,000.
I think this is in our financial policies to put in a percentage of free cash every year to stabilization, capital stabilization, and our OPEB retirement. And so I think this was a conversation the past couple years, even with FinCom, as far as it's better to put in to meet those financial policy obligations and then go before a town and ask to take out what is there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Austin.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think so, just generally, I think, bond rating agencies wanna see, yes, that you're contributing, but also that you're also utilizing those funds for capital projects, right? So, while it may net out to be whatever the difference is of 120,000 minus the 37, so we're actually, spending more. This was just kind of the capital plan, but I also wanted to show the kind of free cash spending plan, just so people see where we are at the end. So, Al, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, just I'll quickly refer to that. So free cash certification as of July 1st of 2023 was $757,859. As discussed, I'm proposing $250,000 in free cash for the budget. 5% of the total free cash value, so that's approximately, I'm just gonna round up and say 38,000 to go to the stabilization, capital stabilization and the OPEB trust fund. And then $227,950 for capital projects. That leaves an available balance of $166,230 in free cash for future. So we already know, think about that, 166 plus the $100,000 of forced free cash from the educational assessment. You're already, over 200, so you've almost, you're almost at the, not quite replenishing what you used for the budget, but you're getting there pretty quickly.
Austin, do you have a number for the fund status? How much is in the capital fund?
It's I'm gonna round up, it's not 350, but it's approximately 300 some odd thousand, and then it's over $1 million for the general stabilization.
Okay, so about 3. We're gonna take out 120, 40, so we're gonna take about 80,000 out of that. That's okay. As involved in the capital stabilization, I have said for the last couple of years when times were tough that we're not gonna build that fund big enough to buy a fire truck or maybe even an ambulance, cause we have needs, so I'm glad to see that we are pulling some money out to help in tough times like.
It's good to use it, right? Contribute, use it. There's also some practices, you know, Tamika's getting roaring pretty soon on doing a public auction of a bunch of, I'm gonna be nice and call it just stuff.
Vintage municipal
Yeah.
items.
You know, there's some communities that have a policy, anytime they have miscellaneous revenue for auctions, they have a policy to put that directly into their capital fund. Because you think you're selling capital equipment, making money off of it, makes sense to do that. So that could be something. I know we've also talked about the possibility of if a department sells $20,000 worth of stuff in the capital plan, they get $20,000 worth of purchases. So that's ultimately a board decision, but you know, that's a good practice too, to clear out some of the things that are in town hall or the DPW garage or the back room of the library. Not suggesting anything.
It's somebody's future treasures.
Yeah.
Right, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my previous community, I did a handful of auctions. One auction, we made $88,000 from one auction. People love stuff.
And if you get consistent about it, then they know to look for it, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And it costs us nothing.
Yeah.
Other than just, you know, the time of putting it on the website.
I'm excited.
Just wanna make sure I quickly roll through, so the memo that I provided also provided a 5-year history of local receipts, 5-year history of state aid, and then also that ARPA spending plan, so hopefully you have as much information as possible. Page 2 of the packet also provides kind of that general overview of the spending, and then the budget book was updated over the weekend to reflect all of this information as proposed as well.
And then are you looking for any direction for the remaining 100,000, or is that for future discussion?
Well, so yeah, my proposal is to pay our next school assessment with that. So instead of using general
okay.
fund money, use ARPA, so that essentially creates free cash.
Gotcha, okay,
Not
sorry,
essentially, it does create free.
got it, okay. So
We are
all of
not,
it's allocated.
if I may, we are not touching the RDIC fund at all,
Correct.
correct? Good, okay.
And this is a way to clear out ARPA that needs to be cleared out by the end of the calendar year. And that way, again, trying to be mindful of all the requests of all the different entities and pieces, working pieces of the budget, capital, operating, everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and the good thing is, especially with some of these, you're gonna start seeing some
Return on investment.
well, yeah, there you go. You're gonna see the capital work done on this building, I'll sign the contract tomorrow if this is approved by the board. And they'll get started over the next few weeks and over the summer. You'll hear from the engineer for the municipal services feasibility study. You'll be part of the interviews process to see what the select board wants to see for municipal services facility. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. Obviously, we can't cover everything. That's the challenge of having limited time and resources to be able to do everything, but hopefully this encompasses a lot of the overall organizational needs.
Any other questions, comments? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the ARPA spending plan as presented.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Matt's and I.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Austin. I know it's been a lot of moving pieces and back and forth and not enough money to go and where everybody wants it. And so I think that this was as good of a compromise as we can try to get. So, thank you.
Madam Chair, I just, one more request if the board is,
You got 10 minutes.
I did ask the finance committee just for a formal motion of support for the budget. Just wanna make sure I cover that base with you guys as well. If there's any questions overall about the budget or where we are, if you feel comfortable in making a motion to approve the budget, so as we're kind of getting ready for town meeting and putting out resources, we have kind of both important boards have given their respective approvals.
Can I ask one question, with regards to the ladder truck?
Yes.
Is the 1.8 million, is that the total cost? Cause I feel like I remember Chief talking about grant money to go towards that.
Yeah, so that would be the total cost. He did recently just put in for an assistance to firefighters grant, which would cover about $1 million
Okay,
of that. Of course, it's a competitive grant, so it's the responsibility of us to finance it on, to essentially buy the truck and then utilize that as either a reimbursement or we just lower the overall debt service.
okay,
Yeah.
alright.
And that would be just for that would be a debt exclusion question, which we'll discuss coming up.
Sorry, yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, but I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't part of the operating budget.
Yes, okay.
You know, it would be excluded debt.
Got it.
And that's, so I think Austin, your proposed budget is utilizing 250,000 in free cash. I just had the number, from ARPA. I think it's 467, 526, 68, for of ARPA. And then, and then that's the current proposed presentation of the budget, is that?
Yep.
So I would entertain a motion to endorse the administrator's proposed budget as presented.
So moved.
If there's conversation, I mean, I don't wanna, Harry, before we have the motion, if you,
Well, my only issue is looking at DPW. They came in about 2%, I believe, increase. But from what I could gather, it was due to a lot of the reduction in the night ice and snow account. Am I correct
No.
there?
No.
Why did we only, police went up high, recreation safe place went up high, fire went up high, and DPW didn't. And they do a lot of the bulk of the work in town, and I'm just curious as to why they didn't get a big increase.
So remember, percentages can be tricky when we're looking at them. The DPW budget in sum is actually the largest departmental budget, excluding schools. It's bigger than police, bigger than fire, because it comprises highway, facilities and grounds, or overall supplies and services for all the buildings, operations, snow and ice. So the overall spend for DPW is, where are we? $1.8 million. So in terms of DPW, I believe their wage increase per the collective bargaining agreement this year is 2%, plus those that are eligible for a step. We level funded most of the supplies and services for the DPW, actually for all departments, we level funded supplies and services with some exceptions. We decreased the forestry budget just in an effort to balance the budget a little bit more. Chris didn't come, or Director Kolofsky didn't come with a substantial budget request. Just because, again, I think they felt that they were made whole with FY24. You know, that added substantial amount of staffing, resources, put their snow and ice to the highest it's ever been. So we level funded those. And then facilities, we did a modest increase of those because we all know that our utility expenses aren't going down. So neither are the town's expenses. So we increased those mostly 2% for each line item. So the overall budget, to your point, Harry, was just over 2%. But again, they're kind of two different beasts. You're talking about public safety and you're talking about DPW. There's a lot more as well in terms of the contractual collective bargaining agreements for public safety as well that, you know, we couldn't change. Those were kind of in a lot of what we had for this year too.
How many years left in the contract?
For DPW, 2.
No, for fire.
Oh, fire, that contract expires next year.
Okay. Just seems, when I look at the twos, it seems a little out of whack to me, and I'm trying to figure out here. could we have given a little more money to some other of the departments if we didn't give so much to some other departments? You know, type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just get a grasp on that.
I mean, I think this is some of the kind of working with department heads and through the administrator's office to figure out what works as a whole for the town as an entirety. There's been years in the past that DPW has maybe had a little bit more than public safety or something. I think the past few years DPW has taken a hit, and with the increased revenue last year, I think that to Austin's point, they felt like they were back to a good spot and didn't wanna go in asking for the stars this year.
And the good thing, so I mean, the capital plan, I think you guys were very supportive of the director's request for the facilities vans. Probably shouldn't have passed inspection, but they did, so we're gonna get them new vans for both the sewer and the general facilities. Obviously, one nice benefit that the DPW has already was the establishment of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. So next year will also further some of the work that they can do on stormwater that historically they haven't been able to do in their general fund budget. So, you know, the good thing about
We know what you mean.
DPW, I mean, they've got 3 departmental budgets, they've got 2 enterprise funds, actually 3 technically if you wanna count water and sewer separate, and then stormwater. So they've got a lot of capacity to be able to do a lot of things, just by the nature of how they operate.
Okay. Why was there almost an 11% decrease in planning, community development, conversation, and conservation?
Yeah, so that was discussed during the budget process, 11% decrease. So my proposal was shifting the conservation agent funding from the general fund to split between the stormwater enterprise fund, and I'll be at the Conservation Commission tomorrow asking for use of the Wetlands Protection Act funds. Certainly within the law of Wetlands Protection Act, many communities totally fund their conservation agent from Wetlands Protection Act. We actually just put out that position, the board approved an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Sterling to share a conservation agent / stormwater coordinator. So this individual will share responsibilities of conservation work, but also a lot of the stormwater work that we need to maintain compliance with MS.
Have we ever used money from the Wetlands Protection Act?
We have, for various things. I think Tamika, when she does recording secretary work for Concom, I think is paid through there. We've used it for some other purchases like equipment, supplies, things like that.
Okay.
So, I think Paul had made the motion, or is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any additional conversation? Hearing none, roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
That's it.
Ledger I.
Reservations.
Waitman, aye. I mean, I don't think any of us are psyched about the use of the one-time free cash, but this is Rutland and where we are. Maybe we'll get some more back from the state aid with school and everything. But there's conversation as to how municipalities are the ones that are strapped. The federal government can do whatever and the state government can do whatever, and the municipalities are the ones that are at the constraints of 2.5 with, at some point, an inability to fund what has to be funded. Even if we were to say we're gonna go rogue and have no services, at some point there's something that's gonna need to be funded, so. Moving on, I was asked to bring up board operations and for general discussion. I think, Harry, you had some questions, concerns, so.
Madam Chair, can we kind of move that a little bit down? I'd rather make sure we do the stormwater utility, get those rates and stuff done,
Okay.
okay? And then after that, we can get into.
Moving on then under new business, we have the stormwater utility, we have the set rates. Austin is proposing setting the stormwater rates. Austin, do you wanna?
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. So with any enterprise fund or utility, typically, the the town meeting will approve the spending, and then the board at a future or subsequent meeting actually sets the rates. The proposal or the request of the board to consider for rates for FY '24 is $40 per parcel. This is considering the approved spending of $114,000 for the enterprise fund. Taking a look at our most recent parcel database and kind of dividing that into getting the $40 per parcel, so we cover all expenses necessary to make sure that we get those bills paid for this year. And then we'll do the same thing after the May town meeting to set the rates for FY '25. The memo kind of spells out a little bit, so sort of the timeline and what the approved spending was. And then this is per developed parcel, so a developed parcel includes structures and or impervious parking facilities. And then they're considered the highest and most frequent contributors to discharging to our municipal stormwater system. Hence why we're only classifying those parcels as contributors to the stormwater enterprise fund resources that are needed. And this $40 per parcel will be assessed to those. There'll be a separate bill for stormwater explaining everything that I've just mentioned and more. We have resources available on the town website, rutlandma.gov/stormwater, that explains what this is, what they're paying for. Any questions that they may have, they can reach out to either our office or DPW. So trying to inform the people as much as possible. There's still gonna be questions. But because this is kind of a new thing, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions about, hey, what is the stormwater? I don't have water or sewer. Actually, it doesn't matter, right? So, like Tamika, you don't have water or sewer, but you're gonna pay this bill, hopefully.
I will, don't
This
worry.
is treated as, this is also treated as, because it's a utility, we can also lien this, very similar to water and sewer bills, so we do find ways to get revenue. However, if you're familiar with the lien structure, I'm not gonna pick on you, Tamika. If I don't pay my stormwater bill, for this quarter, the town has to wait a whole year for the next, actually for the first property tax bill of the subsequent fiscal year. So we've gotta wait a long time just to be able to lien this. Getting into the weeds there, but my request is $40 per parcel to cover the FY '24 stormwater budget.
And then it goes to 2025, or
Yep.
that's 80 then, or 40?
So I'd have to do the math, it would be about double. The proposed stormwater budget is a little bit more than double, just because again, we had some contractual increases that we're trying to plan for stormwater, but I think the intent was FY '24 would be approximately half of what we need for a full year's worth of spending. But I believe the proposal, excuse me while I delay, the proposal for the FY '25 budget for stormwater is $305,000.
So that's not a so we're planning on spending 305, so we're gonna take in 305.
Right.
And every year that's gonna go up a little bit, or it's gonna stay?
I think it'll probably stay flat. I mean, there's definitely gonna be a big jump from '24 to '25, just because the nature of, we're paying for a full year's worth of services now. We're also paying, as mentioned with the conservation agent, we're paying a portion of someone's salary now for the work that's done. But I think we'll also recognize some other revenue that's gonna come from stormwater. I actually just found an old email earlier from Gary, when he was DPW director, proposed rules and regulations that could bring in some extra money. So when you are developing a super Walmart, DPW can charge essentially like an assessment of your stormwater system. And those go through the rules and regs and go into the stormwater enterprise fund. So, it's the cost of doing business, just like when we have DPW do some work on identifying culverts, things like that for parking lots or new construction. They charge fees, we charge water connection fees, we charge sewer connection fees. We're building up this enterprise fund to be a fully functioning utility to be in compliance with MS4.
I know we're hamstrung because the feds want us to do it. We don't have much of a choice. I'm just worried about the citizens of the town, when you look at all the extras on the water and the sewer bill, being hit with just another tax on that, if you will. I mean, I seriously, I do worry about them. Cause we've hit them real hard in the last couple of years, with 2.5 and everything, so. That's why I was asking, if we're paying 80, that will kind of break us even, so we're gonna spend about that too. We're not gonna be left with 200,000 in the fund after we've collected the money. That's not what this is designed to do.
No, yeah, we're not proposing to make money off of this, we're just covering costs. By the nature of, however, just because enterprise funds, right, I mean, we don't, with our water and sewer, we don't budget to make money, but just by the nature of new people connecting to the system, we end up having reserves. But this is a municipal utility, we just need to make sure we cover the spending for this year.
Okay.
But I do hear, and especially, you know, one of the challenges of MS4 is we don't have an option to comply.
Right.
Right? You know, if we, just quickly doing the math, I've been here almost 365 days. I got a call on my second day of work here from the EPA threatening $25,000 a day. So if it's about a year's worth, that's 9.1, I think I did that number right, $9.1 million in civil penalties from the EPA that could have been assessed. So to be honest, I'll take the 114 or I'll take the 300 any day over 9.1 going to the federal government and does nothing for us.
Right.
But of course, that doesn't, to your point, Harry, that doesn't mitigate individual residents' concerns, right? So I think it may be also prudent on the board to consider and direct staff to, you know, maybe adopt some sort of abatement policy for special circumstances for individuals, which we have with water and sewer. We can certainly do that, I think, as we work to develop the rules and regs for stormwater, but.
I mean, I think historically the town, the board has been very willing to work with individuals as long as there's open communication and documentation and everything. So I personally don't foresee that being different for this utility as it is with water and sewer, as it is with real property, and even as we've been talking about CPA and kind of those mitigations as well, trying to really make it, we don't wanna push people out of town, we don't want people to feel like they can't stay in their homes because of this, so providing avenues and opportunities for that.
Right, I mean, as I went around town collecting signatures, I had really a good chance to talk to people. And there's a lot of concern out there, a lot of hurt out there in terms of 2.5, and now we got this increase, and we got this increase, and now we're going for this increase. Just frustration, and that's what I'm hoping that, I didn't wanna see any money made on this, if you will, cause there's enough frustration out there. Let alone the fire truck.
So I would entertain a motion then to set the fiscal year 24 stormwater utility rates as presented.
So moved.
Question, just so I understand, Austin, so right now we're gonna set the 24 at $40.
Yep.
But after May, after the town hall meeting, we're jumping it to 80.
We'll come with the formal rate proposal,
Oh.
but yeah, if you do the math, it'd be about $85.
So we get 1 or
but-
2 months at 40,
Correct.
okay.
But, so we're just doing one bill a year.
I was gonna say, this is just one bill, it's not a yearly bill, it's
One bill.
$40.
Okay.
Yep. So this wouldn't be quarterly, just one bill, $40 for FY '24, and then the next bill would be, if approved tonight, we'll be sending the bill on April 15th. Give folks, I think the bills would be due May 15th, about a month, which also gives us some time to kind of close out the fiscal year. We're planning, or the goal is, instead of doing it in Q4 next year, we'll do it in Q3 just to allow for a little bit more time. But yeah, we'll, for FY '25 after town meeting, probably in June or July, we'll come with rate recommendations for water, sewer, and stormwater.
This will be a separate bill, like our excise tax that comes in.
You
We
made a
wanted
motion.
to include it on a water and sewer, but we didn't want it to be lost.
Yeah.
Especially for a new bill, it's just gonna be an individual bill, so quite literally it'll say, you know, stormwater, it'll have all the information on stormwater, so you can, you know, it demonstrates, I think, the importance of it too.
And provide a little bit of the education piece as well. I mean, I think that that's some of what
Yep.
MS4 wants also is some public education.
Cause before I came here, I looked at my water and sewer bill again, and it's like boom, boom, boom.
Gotta get that
boom.
usage down.
Yeah, and now we're gonna like have another booms, but it's gonna be separate, okay,
And it's going to every parcel owner,
yeah,
not water or sewer users.
okay.
So there was a
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any other conversation? Hearing none, roll call.
Second, aye.
That's a nice.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Austin. Shall we continue moving forward with new business for right now?
Yeah.
We have appointment of 4th of July committee. I know the 4th of July committee has made a big push to try to get some new membership, and it looks like it was quite successful. We have a number of interested individuals. Deborah Barakian, Caroline Bishop, Kelly Briggs, Kyle Carpenter, and
Oh, I'm sorry, that should say Kathy Cousino.
Kathy.
That
I
was my
gonna say
fault, I
that
apologize.
And Kathy Cousino. I was gonna say, I'm gonna. And the 4th of July committee is appointed yearly, for 1-year terms. They are responsible for the townwide yard sale, and a lot of the 4th of July activities. So it's a big role, a fun role, but it's a lot of work. I think sometimes it's billed as the fun committee, but it comes to crunch time and they have a lot of work to do. Everyone, I think,
Did
has.
we receive copies from the chair?
Yep, it's in your packet. So there's a letter of interest from each person and then an email from the chair with recommendation to appoint all members.
Okay,
And Deborah was a former member, she's looking to join back on. And then I believe the other 4 individuals are new members to the committee, but by no means new members to town or to the 4th of July experience. I love seeing some new names out, I know. Thank you, Tamika, for continuing to get the push out online, on social media, on the website, on the sign
Let it
and
rip.
everything, so thank you.
Use the help.
okay.
So I would entertain a motion to appoint Deborah, Caroline, Kelly, Kyle, and Kathy to 1-year terms, for the 4th of July committee as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any conversation? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
That's a nice.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. And again, thank you all for all of that. Moving into kind of the Community Preservation Act. I think that there's been conversation as to having a liaison designated from the board to respond to any questions that may come up on the town meeting floor, as well as providing informational, an informational page on the website. I think Austin and Tamika have been working on the website piece of things to provide factual information so that the residents can make an educated decision for how it's going to impact them and their vision of town, I think. Austin, do you want to?
Sure, yeah, so we just, I think just in an effort to educate people a little bit more, this is just some generic information about Community Preservation Act, but one of the things that I thought would be helpful for people is actually putting a calculator. So if you put in your assessed home value of, $450,000, that'll give you your estimated CPA surcharge. Now, obviously, this is based off of current year tax rate, current year value, so, once those values and tax rate are changed, this would automatically update. And we could just keep this in perpetuity for people, especially if it continues to pass. You can go right in, see what your value is, and based off of some assumptions, so I assumed that we would adopt the $100,000 exclusion, so that's in this calculation as well. And you can put any value. I've got to boost a little bit more some information about if you don't know your value, how to find it, who to contact. So we can certainly build that a little bit more, but this calculator was something that we built to try to.
And this current calculator is utilizing the 3%
It is.
CPA surcharge, just as conversation for, or information for the board. AgCom presented to FinCom last week, CPA. And FinCom, I don't know that they took a formal vote, but they were amenable to they were very amenable to the 3%, given the fact that it was provided the most opportunity for matching. And they AgCom was presenting the $100,000 exemption for everyone, and then also the low income and low to moderate income senior exemptions, which would follow HUD housing income guidelines and requires the onus on the property owner to file with the assessor's office yearly, but that's another way to address some of the concerns for the folks who based on income would struggle to make the payments. I think for the warrant article, I don't think yet they have a percentage. I think they're still doing their public outreach and everything. But I just wanted to, at FinCom, I know we had conversations, the concerns as to the percentage and everything, when Randy was here, when AgCom was here, but I think FinCom was quite amenable to the 3%. But Austin, I appreciate you putting that up and utilizing that, because I think it's important for folks to be able to go in and see what it's gonna look like. And again, that would be a one-time yearly assessment. The number that it shows there would be a one-time yearly. As far as having someone at town meeting to respond to questions, if it comes up to the select board as a whole, I don't know if the board has any feelings. I mean, I've been involved in it. Jen, I think you've been involved in it a little bit also, but Paul, Harry, I don't wanna,
All I can tell you is I've read through about 120 pages of the capital CPA, and it is very, very complicated. It's in the weeds, well, how do you start it? How can you spend it? Where does it come from? How can you get rid of it? How do you change it? All that kind of stuff. And I guess my recommendation would be that we could have somebody lead, but if there's a question somebody doesn't know how to answer, somebody else might on the board. So we should kind of leave it open, but there could be a lead. I will tell you, I did, as I was going around collecting my signatures, I started mentioning it to people. And there were a couple that were 3, but just about everybody I talked to was 1%. So I don't know if that's a geographic of the whole town, with the concerns they have for what they're paying and where they're living and so forth, but that's just what I can add to the conversation.
yeah, I mean, I think right now the percentage is still up for conversation as far as AgCom and everything. And utilize that as some public information outreach and opportunities. But I mean, I think that there's been in the information sessions that I've attended, once people hear the opportunity to get maximize the return in the matching funds at being 3%, and then understanding that there's the ability for the that everyone would get the $100,000 exemption, and then the base exemptions, it allays some of the fears. Now, I can't say that it allays all of them, because I think everybody has their concerns.
I just, again, my concern is we're coming in with another tax on top of 2.5. That's my concern. So, and I said before, we better, whoever is doing the presenting better have their act together. Do it. But I just, there are so many questions that might get asked that I don't know as any one person on the board or anybody can really answer all the questions.
Yeah, we might not be able to.
It's very
We'll
complicated.
just have to take them back, and like Randy said, there's contacts at, within the CPC that can assist with anything that we can't answer, so.
And even the town meeting vote If it's an affirmative town meeting vote, it still has to go to a
To the
ballot
ballot.
question, so it's not
Right.
an automatic passes at town
Right.
meeting and automatic, there's still opportunity for questions and answers and information and everything, so.
I hope there isn't too much play on it, cause a lot of people will say, I'll vote for it if it has to go to a town meeting vote, without really thinking about it, so I don't know, again, I'm concerned about the people in this town. We got 35% of the people who are seniors.
Yep.
And many of them can't afford extra taxes, so.
And we heard from a lot of them that would very much want to have some of their dollars being allocated for things that they feel very strongly about that we can't pull out of it, and realistically aren't ever going to be able to pull out of the general fund. So I think it's weighing both and all.
Yeah.
So,
As long as you understand, when we buy a piece of land, we lose that tax forever. It's gone.
but I think we heard the historical piece and there's conversation about recreation and affordable housing in the context of, even a housing production plan and everything also. Some of what.
I'm not arguing that
Right.
CPA is not good,
Right.
it is good. I'm just concerned about the citizens of this town, that's all.
Yeah, no, I think it's something we all need to be mindful
And
of for sure.
I guess I'll say that I feel it's too soon. We are just coming off, getting ourselves together, and we're throwing another tax at them. I think a year would be good, but
My
we'll wait for
argument,
the
my
town to
argument
see.
to that, Harry, is looking forward to what we're gonna be talking about for next year's budget. We could be having an even more difficult discussion, so like, if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass, but for me, it's more of, we need to try and put our best foot forward, show what we think this can do for the town, and let them decide, and if they vote it down, they vote it down. But I don't think there's any harm in trying to get something through and just
Oh, I
trying to
don't
be
either,
as positive about, you want your money to go towards these things,
I'm
this
just
is how you
thinking
can
in
make that
terms-
happen.
I'm just thinking next year, we're gonna have over $1 million, again, we have to make up. Well, if we pass this, we've already got a tax on them now we're gonna have to get another tax somehow. We're gonna have to increase something to make it worse again for the citizens.
But for me, like, I don't wanna pay another override, but at the same time, whatever happens with the budget in the coming years, if this passes, I can say, we still have money to put towards some things that are important for me as a resident that we otherwise would not be able to do because we have to finagle the budget one way or another. So it's still a positive thing for me because I'm still contributing, and I can say that money is going towards something that we couldn't otherwise pay for. It's not related to the general fund budget. That's the positive in it for me.
For me, I think some of it is that some of what we have historically been spending free cash on, and maybe it hasn't been giant lump sums of free cash, but that we have been spending free cash on, whether it's the Woodhouse or whether it's, the conversations even surrounding town hall or the playgrounds and everything, that funds here could be utilized for that then
Yes.
would open up free cash to be utilized
Elsewhere.
for other, whether it's back into the budget or
Right.
whether it's other projects.
But
that-
I'm afraid that's gonna get lost in the weeds. I'm
Well, that's why
afraid
we
that
need to be very
message-
careful.
I have
Because
to agree with that.
The message they're going to hear is, we're buying open land.
No, we need to be very, and I think we have been trying to be very clear about that this is not intended just as a mechanism to purchase land.
That's
There's
what I'm saying, because
even more than that,
when you
there's
take,
more
if we're
benefit.
buying stuff that's already off the tax roll, we're helping out, that's one thing. But if we are now taking taxes and then taking stuff off the tax roll, that's gonna be an issue. 'Cause there's a lot of people in this town that want open land,
Oh, yeah, great.
so we gotta,
But there would be a community, CPC committee
Yep.
that would vet everything, and then the ultimate spend question still goes before town
Still goes
meeting.
to town meeting.
So if the town decides that they don't, if CPC vets and says that this parcel is a good use of funds and they vetted and scored it appropriately or however according to their rubrics, and it goes before town and town says no, then town says no. Town meeting ultimately has the final say in the spends of those monies, so it's not a 5-member
Right.
board or a committee appointed by a 5-member board that's
Right.
making those ultimate
So
decisions.
they're adding to the fund and they're deciding how it gets spent. It's important to them, so, like I said, I feel like there's never gonna be a right time, so you just gotta go for it and see what happens.
I just wish they would go up 1%, not 3. But we'll wait and see.
So I think, Austin, I think through the CPC website and the IGR and everything, there's a lot of valuable information that is it's truthful, right? It's coming across, providing the facts and not trying to sway individuals one way or the other. We want informed voters, especially on something like this. So I think if you can, I don't know if somewhere on there that you can even say that the current percentage right now is defaulted to 3 because that's what the conversation is, or if there's an opportunity, if it's easy enough to put in where people could put, I don't know, a 1, a 2 and a 3 or something along that.
Could that
but-
be tracked?
I'm
You know,
sorry.
you have like a 1, 2, and a 3, so you click on which percentage you're willing to do. Could that be tracked? to
I
give
could,
us-
yeah, I could build this a little bit more and see,
Or even just auto-populate that you put your assessed value in and it's gonna automatically say 1% would put you here, 2% would
Yeah.
here, and 3% there.
yeah, I could, yeah.
I mean, I'd
I could
rather
do that.
prefer
That's a
them click
great
on
idea.
it, that gives you an indication of how the town will look at it.
Yeah.
From a voting perspective.
Right, but we're not gonna be able to track individual clicks and
I don't think it's
Yeah, I
gonna,
wouldn't be able to tell like Harry, for example, that you clicked on it. I would just, this is just a tool for you to be able to inform
Okay.
yourself about what it would cost you.
All right, yeah, but I think we should give them the range so they can look at that. If
1,
that's
2, and 3?
possible.
1, 2, and 3, is that what
Yeah.
you want?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I know that we could do the 0.5% in there also, but that would at least give people a ballpark
Yeah.
number of where they
Yeah.
were falling.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot more that we gotta add to that site too. We just kind of put it up today, just with some generic
'Cause that's-
information. There's like slides and things like that we could add to
The
as well.
budget and this are gonna be the 2 contentious items on the floor. I would bet on that.
Okay.
So the more clear we can be.
did we talk to AgCom about getting like examples of things that we could fund with these? To again, show the town open space,
So I
field
think-
maintenance, playgrounds, historical preservation.
I mean, yeah, we can refer, I don't know if we've had that conversation with AgCom. I think we could refer to some projects that are in our existing capital plan.
Yeah.
That relate to some of those, especially for recreation kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Historic preservation, but also, I mean, just by the nature of, you know, I disappeared for like an hour like last week. I was down at Putnam Park. That would be a great CPA project, you know, restoring that, right? So there's even other examples that maybe we haven't thought or talked about. There's probably other things that are in our pre-existing open space and recreation or master plan.
Yeah.
Identified projects and needs that we could also refer to.
I think just having actual examples of things in town would give people a good idea of,
Yeah.
oh, we can use this and we can actually get some of this done and not have to wait.
Right. Yep.
Per se.
Would there be any benefit highlighting neighboring towns' projects? So for example, I think of the town of Hubbardston, that whole recreational complex was a CPA. Was CPA funded, skate park, basketball courts, the fields, that was all
I
CPA.
think you're gonna find recreation is a big deal here for a lot of people, so if there's examples of other towns that we can show would again be helpful.
And that some of it I think is even historic beyond like the buildings that we kind of default to think of, but we have a lot of very old cemeteries in town.
Yes.
That kind of preservation and upkeep and everything also, you know, kind of some of the outside of the box thinking that.
Yeah, within the 4 categories, there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of options, even for recreation, I know we can't do like an actual inside, like an actual building, but you know, we have that temporary tent that they put up for the summer program or the summertime, you could build something that's
Build a
more
pavilion.
open space, exactly. That's a little bit more permanent, you could do, you know, any of the pool house stuff, bathrooms, you could put another bathroom facility in, so we don't have to worry about porta potties, like anything, like there's, yeah, okay.
And I think also for the affordable housing piece, there's opportunities for like rental assistance and everything. Funds can be generated using CPA funds for rental assistance. So I'm not sure if it can work towards mortgage assistances or not also, but for low income qualifying individuals, there can be opportunities in that way also, which I think can address some of the community concerns that we've heard as well.
And that's probably high on the governor's list.
So are you okay with, do you want a formal vote on anything? I think the conversation,
I just, we just wanted the board to feel comfortable with who was going to answer questions when they come up on the floor, knowing that Randy is not going to be there. But I don't think we were looking for any formal vote.
Okay.
Just more the board's
Do we have-
comfortability.
I mean, cause I know AgCom was supposed to be kind of spearheading this, do we have, I'm assuming, doesn't sound like somebody from them is coming forward too?
I'm gonna caution against having somebody from AdCom.
there's a perception.
There's overshadowing issues there. And I think it's better if it comes from the board or from Austin.
Well, yeah, and I can see that, cause I don't wanna pigeonhole it as this is just for purchasing land,
Right.
so, okay,
As innocent as it may be,
understood. No,
It's a
and I
perception
can
thing.
it's a
understand, yeah.
perception issue, yes.
Okay, nope, that's fine.
So I think we can continue that conversation as we get closer, but I think right now, I think to Harry's point, we all bring different unique perspectives to it, so it might be worthwhile having,
We could be like the four students. Do you know that answer? Do you know that answer? No.
And as the clerk, I will ensure that if there's any questions that can't be answered, I will take those down and make sure that we work to get them answered.
Thank you.
I too would hope that they
Are
would
you,
take,
does that answer your,
I think so.
okay.
For now.
We need to let Anita know, the town clerk know, if we are planning to place any ballot questions. And so I think it's been recommended through CIPC that we consider a debt exclusion ballot question for the fire department ladder truck. And I believe that dollar amount was 1.8 million.
Right now it's 1.8. I be honest with you, I expect it to go over that. I mean, the cost today, we're not gonna get it for 3 years, 2 to 3 years. It just has to be set aside, if you will. Cause I talked with Seth and 1.8, I don't think is gonna get the number done. But to request 2 million, I don't know if that's being outside the realm too.
To be clear, I think there's actually a truck available for us right now. I think recognizing that this was a recommended project from CIPC, I think the vendor hasn't marketed this fire truck to anyone else with the hopes that Rutland can acquire this truck, so it'd be more like a year or so. So just to be clear, this wouldn't hit our fiscal year budgets until fiscal year 26. And the estimated impact, depending on what term we choose in terms of a loan term. So I just came up with some sample figures. If we borrow for 10 years, the estimated impact in FY 26 is $81 for the average single-family tax bill for 10 years. If it's a 15-year note, it's $59. If it's a 20-year note, it's $51. And then, of course, by the nature of debt service, that goes down every year.
Comments on anybody on that?
I mean, I know we have a decent amount of debt coming off that has already fallen off and a lot more coming off. And so kind of best financial practices is to kind of keep that excluded debt line somewhat consistent so that there's not these large, massive swings in change.
Traditionally, we keep our fire trucks 20, 25 years.
Right.
So a 20-year note would not be bad, it would be low. And if we ever get the opportunity, we can always pay that off too.
Yep.
Or refinance it with a lower rate. So I'd be one for,
But I think for
taking
this ballot
longer.
question, it would simply be if the residents are willing to exclude the
Yep.
1.8 million for a fire department ladder truck, and then the terms get worked out through
Right.
treasurer, collector, administrator,
And it's gonna be excluded because we don't want it as a permanent,
correct.
Outside
Yeah.
of the levy.
Once it's paid off,
yeah,
it falls off.
right.
Yeah, so just for forecasting, the multi-year model demonstrates this, but we'll have our final year debt service on existing projects falls off in FY 26, so this will kind of have a 1-year overlap, and then we have no debt service excluded after FY 26 right now.
Yeah.
Because in 2030, we're gonna have some big debt.
Just wanna note too, this will also improve our ISO rating. I think that's Insurance Services Office, federal office that kind of takes a look at our water supply, our fire protection, and assigns a rating for each community based off of a bunch of criteria. I'd be happy to send it with the board. Right now, we score ISO, I think 4. Ladder truck is one of the findings where we score a little bit lower just by the nature of the age of our apparatus, how many times it's been out of service, things like that. So that's a part of the consideration from ISO. With a brand new ladder, we believe that we'll get full score and actually upgraded to ISO. I think you wanna go up or down. Regardless, it'll save some insurance rates for your property insurance based off of a better ISO rating.
Would we have any idea of that for the town meeting?
I think Seth,
As part of the pitch, if you will?
Seth knows more about that. I can ask him.
Okay.
Fire chief, if he has, you know, even if it's rough figures and what that would look like in terms of what your home insurance rates would look like. You know, I think in, passing conversation, he said, it'll offset, essentially you pay more in the property tax, but you pay less in your insurance.
Which would be a nice thing for the town to know.
There's also some other things that we're working with DPW and Weston and Sampson on, I think we're not getting full credit for our water protection, hydrants and things like that. The nature of all the development that's happened, we've installed more hydrants and pump stations, and we're not getting full credit. So combination of hopefully a successful ladder truck and some other work through ISO will save some people money on their insurance.
So,
Just to be clear, the question, not specific, but would be, shall the town of Rutland be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to acquire a ladder fire truck?
and does it include the dollar amount there, the 1.85
Yep.
million?
It'll be interesting. The last time we bought one was about 22 years ago. So,
That was the
So-
first one.
huh?
That was our first
That
one.
was our first big one.
Yeah.
Yep, ladder
Yeah.
truck.
So I would entertain a motion for the board to place the debt exclusion ballot question as presented for the fire department ladder truck at 1.85 million.
So moved.
Second?
Any other conversation? Hearing, and Tamika, just that it was highly rated with CIPC, that it's,
Yeah, that
through
was
the-
our number one rating.
through the vetting process and everything. Alright, roll call, Harry.
Second, aye?
Matt's and I,
Ledger I.
Lightman, aye. And you guys can communicate to the town clerk's office that, please. Thank you. Thank you. We just got word today that we've been back and forth with the Chapter 70 kind of school funding letter because I wanted to make sure that anything that we as a town were going to ask or advocate for wasn't going to actually end up hurting us. And there was some conversation back and forth about that. And it came back that it seems that the best avenue is to kind of advocate for reevaluating and increasing Chapter 70 reevaluating Chapter 70 funding formula for municipalities in the state. That we didn't wanna be much more specific than that because there's questions if we advocate specifically for an increase in the hold harmless dollar amount, that could make it harder for us to come out of hold harmless in the future. The inflation, increase to the inflation rate should be fine for Rutland. The concern is that because Rutland especially has a very healthy municipal growth rate percent, that we're getting hit more there than we are by the inflation rate. So this is just kind of this letter is just more generally asking, and Tamika, I would just ask that it also goes to Senator Durant and Representative Ferguson also. And probably even, I think similar to what the school district did with their two list. The governor and then the joint committee on education. But to just generally kind of ask for more chapter 70 funding. We're hit this year with the school budget hard. I think if it was funded similar to last year, we still would have been hit hard because we have more students and we are a fairly well-to-do community, but the funding formula this year especially has really nailed us.
I'm curious, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, is whether or not we should send that. With this letter going from Wachusett, from Scott, what implications does that mean if we then send another one there when they've got one from the district, so to speak?
So I personally think there's value to having letters and numbers. So I personally was advocating and didn't yet do it because I wanted to make sure that any asks weren't going to be detrimental to the town side. But that select boards and FinComs could send each their own letter advocating for something similar, because I think that there is great value in numbers of letters advocating for attention to the education funding formula. We're not asking for anything different than what the school is. We're just not maybe quite as specific. And to kind of lead into the second item, then there's a STAM, Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts Legislative Priorities that touches on a lot of these education funding pieces also. So it's just, again, the advocacy piece is kind of being the squeaky wheel and continuing to call attention. We realize that regional districts are tough and we're outside of the demographics of the communities that tend to get a lot of the education funding. But this year's funding formula especially has hit a large majority of the state school districts in a negative way.
Jen, any thoughts?
No, I'm in agreement. We can send. I mean, it's different, I mean, it impacts the district as a whole, but like Leah said, we're the ones that take the fall. We have to make up the difference and.
Well, that's why I was wondering if it'd be counterproductive. In respect to what you just said, you know? So,
Yeah, I mean, all the other towns saw a decrease in their student population, Rutland did not. So we were the one who really held up the formula.
I think it was us and
The rest of the
Princeton.
towns
I think there were two towns. I think it was us and Princeton. I think Princeton, but yeah. But again, this is a piece of that whole education funding piece that is a struggle because we're part of the regional agreement. The state's not gonna work with us on our regional agreement. That's a separate issue. This is a little bit of the concern with how the state looks at education funding and the constraints of 2.5 that all the municipalities have.
Thoughts? Austin?
Anything that helps us.
I mean,
To be honest, I mean, I think any advocacy letter, I mean, any time you read a news article about the FY25 budget situation for the state, they're in a significant, we're in a challenge, but they're in a significant challenge for next year. So, I think it's worth an effort to try. We'll see what they have in additional revenue and capacity to accommodate some of these needs, but
I mean, there's what, 200 and something districts that were, like, we can't be the only school district that is sending in letters saying.
Right. Well, and
We need
I
help.
think what will likely happen, if I had a crystal ball, I think they'll slightly increase the minimum aid from $30 to I think for many years, many communities and regional school districts were asking for 50. Now the MMA is asking for $100. I mean, that would more than triple what this Wachusett School District is getting. You know, they go from 200 to, let's say, almost $1 million, right? Again, we'll see if,
It's a drop in the bucket,
Yeah.
all things considered, but.
Yeah.
But I
when they're
think-
spending billions of dollars, yeah.
But I think also some of it is just the constant, like, keeping it on the state's radar that this is really severely impairing municipalities, local municipalities to be able to function and maintain local government services because the cost of education is the cost of a lot of things, but in this particular case, the cost of education is so much higher than what we could fit in 2.5. Even without, I think even if we just looked off of our minimum local contributions, it was still almost 6% requirement. So we were still gonna be quite high. So it's a piece of.
I'm not advocating for don't send it. My brain works, okay? You're asking for this, they're gonna give you this, but then
Were they taking
they're
away?
gonna take something else away from you over here. Okay, that's the way I look at it. So, you know, it's not gonna do any harm, but I'm just thinking, what are they gonna do?
And I think, but that's, I think, one of the things that our elected officials need to hear from us, that this is continuing year over year to be a significant strain to the communities, and year after year, we're making the compromise on the municipal services side. So,
Well, they have a severe housing problem, so they gotta fix it some way.
so I would entertain a motion to send a letter advocating for increased chapter 70 funding to our legislative delegate as well as the Joint Committee on Education and Ways and Means.
So moved. Second,
Motion and a second, any other conversation?
just that, I think the chair should sign it.
I was hoping all of us would sign it, to be honest. I think that there's powers in having signatures from every individual member. Yep, I do. I felt that way for even on previous boards that I've sat on that for advocacy pieces, I think having, there's powers in numbers,
Okay.
personally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
That's a,
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Following up, Austin had presented to me that he's part of the Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts group. And they formulated a letter kind of on behalf of the administrative officers representing the communities with populations of 12,000 or less across the Commonwealth. And this is advocating for not only the school piece, but also a lot of the municipal pieces that small towns rely very heavily on. The small towns across the state rely a lot on state funding. And so this is looking to advocate for the Chapter 90 formula, create and fund a municipal building assistance authority. This has been huge on the list for a number, all of these have been huge on the list through the MMA as well as STAM. Regional school support and sustainable approaches to education. And this is kind of touching base on the education funding formulas, and looking at regional districts and how those incentives could work.
Just making sure you're awake.
And then procurement burdens, and how, especially in small towns, the thresholds and prevailing wage laws can kind of become a detriment to getting work done or getting the amount of work done that I think oftentimes we think we have something that's going to cover significant parts of an entire project, and then because we have to meet thresholds and prevailing wage and everything, it's substantially reduced what can get done. Another big piece is the pilot money, pilot in lieu of taxes. The state owns a lot of land in Rutland and advocating for a larger chunk of payment for that land from the state. I think currently this year, was it last year or this year, it went up significantly, but it's still,
Still $100,000.
I was like right around $100,000, and I think they own about 50% of the land in town, either through watershed or DCR or something. So that could be make a huge impact. And then just kind of continue to provide staffing and support through the Office of the newly developed Office of Rural Affairs, and recognize that the administrative burdens that small towns have often preclude small towns from being able to apply for state grants and everything, because we don't have the funds or the administrative ability to do some of the pre-engineering work or matching funds and stuff like that. So this is another letter kind of, again, kind of numbers, there's power in numbers, and just I think, Austin, I don't know if you sent this as an administrator yourself, but also if we could authorize to send it on to have, I don't know if it's more powerful to come from an administrator or from, I think, the 5-member board, and authorize you to send one also is not a bad thing. Again, I view kind of,
I was wondering, so certainly I could send it, but talking with some other members of the Legislative Affairs Committee upon which I sit, and we drafted these priorities, we thought it would be helpful to make sure that there's support from our boards, running this by you, saying we're representing Rutland, and you're okay with us sending this on behalf of the community. Some of these are very relevant to Rutland, some are just overall for rural communities that I think for example, there's I think almost 200 communities that are considered rural. Provincetown, a lot of the Cape Towns are considered rural for a variety of factors. But Provincetown is in a much better situation financially and in some of these priorities here than we are. But we'll benefit from some things, they'll benefit from some things, but just remembering that as a legislator, you can't really forget about your rural communities. Especially some of the administrative burdens. There's some grants that we look at from the state and federal government that essentially it would cost more, and we'd spend more time trying to figure out how to apply for and administer these grants, because we're not the city of Worcester and we don't have a full grants and procurement department to be able to comply with these. So just a kind of a one pager to see if, again, as Leah mentioned, there's kind of strength in numbers. There's been several communities already that their boards have approved and they sent off to the legislative delegation. So just asking for your support.
So what are we looking to write them a letter?
Or just to, approve these priorities, or approve our office sending this to the legislative delegation.
I think that this is pretty much a form you can fill in the town itself, and then it's a form.
Is this part of another organization, MA?
They're affiliated, but this is an independent organization, but they're affiliated with the Mass Municipal Association.
Okay. Is there a fee to join?
There's a membership fee, yeah.
How much is that?
Actually, it's cheap. I think it's like,
Not like 150
yeah,
or something like that.
So it's not like 1,500 or something?
No.
So
Strictly with legislative priorities.
So I would entertain a motion to authorize the office to send a letter in support of the STAM 2024 legislative priorities as presented.
Motion?
Yeah, I would entertain a motion.
Second.
Any conversation? Hearing none, roll call.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. Going back to old business, board operations and general discussion.
Madam Chair, I appreciate you putting this on there. I have been frustrated trying to understand large amounts of paper when they come to me on a Thursday and the offices are closed on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I have to try to diligently prepare for Monday night's meeting. And that is when we have large amounts of new information, such as police contracts, fire contracts that require time, and putting together financial policies and bylaws. So what I am requesting of the board is that any major information like that, that is in-depth, that we are given at least a week's notice of the information. Doesn't have to be on the agenda. So if we're gonna be getting a policy manual that we need to look at, we get it the previous Monday before the board meeting on Monday. I feel to do the due diligence for the town in the appropriate way, that kind of time is needed.
So I appreciate that. I think I can say that through the advent of technology, we have been having access to our material much more readily than we have in the past. I think I try very hard for anything that is very cumbersome, that we have, if we do it as a first reading, that we do it as a first reading and we don't take action. I think the only kind of maybe piece, and I could be wrong, that we've had are maybe some contracts, but the union contracts, for the most part, a lot of the language is the same that's readily available on the websites. We have access to, it's publicly available. And then the final pieces are, the kind of moving pieces. For contracts, I think it's a little tough because we have to try to balance the board ratifying or conversation with the union delegate conversation and ratification. So that piece, I think, always is a little bit more mumbled or needs to be a little bit more timely. But for financial policies, we've had those, I think, for since end of January, I wanna say, and we had reviewed them in a meeting, but we haven't had any action on them. The HR policies, I think we got the end of February meeting, and that was just in a TA update, and it was mentioned that they were provided to us, and then we would continue conversation. So we had at least, I think, almost a month before Ally came in to walk through the first half of them with us. And again, we haven't voted on them. I try very, very hard, and I don't think that it's perfect all the time by any means, and I'm open to conversation. But I do think that there needs to be a balance as far as the amount of time that we spend and also continue moving business forward.
I'm talking about just not even personally having the time to do it. So we're having a meeting in 2 weeks. A week before that meeting, if there's anything of major importance that takes time to dialogue in and ask questions, we're given a chance at least that week. Now, there are things we get in a month in advance. That's not what I'm discussing. I'm discussing things that I would get on a Thursday that I have to do a lot of work on to really understand, because that's what the town put me here for, is to really understand what I'm doing. I don't want to rubber stamp anything, and I need time to do it. So I'm just asking the board for the opportunity to be able to have that information a week ahead.
I think, and I don't wanna speak for the administrative office, but I think also it's work on their end. If we're asking for always to have everything a week in advance or a majority of things a week in advance, that provides them essentially 3 days less of accumulating information. So I do think, and I know that there was some back and forth with some of the contracts more recently, and we got those a little bit late, but like I said, I try hard to ensure that anything policy-wise, that we're not seeing it and voting on it immediately that same night, that we have opportunity to take it home, digest it, it's presented to the board and the public at one time. Town offices are closed to the public on Fridays, but I know Austin is in office every Friday. And a lot of department heads and other staff are also in office or working. So any questions or anything can be a quick communication with Austin. He can quite generally collect the information. He may have it or collect it and provide it to everybody. Chances are, if one person has the question, there might be more of us that do. But I'm happy to to hear from the rest of the board as far as how to either better streamline things or not. Like I said, I feel I try very hard to not rush things and give us an opportunity to do at least a first reading and then a second reading and vote.
Possibly some of these issues such as contracts or what could be handled the second meeting of the month, and that would give us a week between meetings to peruse these things and look them over and decide about them.
I mean, I think the contracts are not always ready to go by the first meeting of the month or the second meeting of the month. They're timed based on when the union's representation are willing to have time and meet and how the negotiations are going. Austin, and I know sitting on the negotiating team, if you have any insight to kind of the workings of that. Historically, the union piece, the contracts don't change, a lot of the language doesn't change significantly. And I think if there are very significant verbiage changes, we have had in the past conversations leading up to that before the ask for the ratification. And the ratification piece comes with more of the salaries, the compensation pieces, and that.
Even if it's possible to get it done on the fourth week of the month so that we're ready for the first meeting of the month, if that's what's a little bit better as far as the scheduling is concerned, or what?
I mean, Jen, I don't know how you feel. I know we're all juggling a whole lot of different things. We're here doing this, and we're juggling a whole lot of other things outside of here doing this. So I wanna be mindful of everyone's time and also provide adequate opportunity, but also keep business moving forward and not have 2 weeks or a month go between the time a union ratifies something and then the board ratifies it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to things like the contracts, I'd like to go through and review them, but I'm also relying heavily on Austin, highlighting the important things that I need to know that maybe won't, and this is all new to me too, so I'm like, there's a lot that I just reading through this may or may not pick up. So I personally, for me, I still rely heavily on the administrative staff to help point in a lot of, pull out the important pieces that are relevant for us to know, or that may be red flags or things that need further discussion. I speaking for myself, I have felt okay, but I also feel like if there's not enough information, and we've expressed that we've been given additional time to review or go back and ask more questions or get more information at the same time. So I think that, there's never gonna be a perfect, like you said, Leah, you do the best that you can. So I'm certainly open to whatever recommendations or suggestions there are for.
So you feel that I do not need extra time to get that information ahead of time?
Which kind, like, can you?
No, I'm asking Leah.
I guess I'm confused as to what information you're.
I said massive information, such as contracts, such as a 60-page manual dealing with either human resources or financial policy, that we don't be given that on a Thursday and then be asked to review it on a Monday unless we are willing to postpone that decision and the review to the following 2 weeks from there.
I guess.
All I'm saying is, if I have the information, maybe it's not necessary to review it 2 weeks from there.
I guess I'm.
Can I just be clear, for the financial policies and the personnel policies, those were given weeks in advance, especially the financial policies, we had a discussion about them.
Right.
So those were weeks in advance, and that was a 100-page manual. We had a discussion about the personnel policies, but there was no action requested. I've tried to make it a practice of, if I know that there's an upcoming discussion point, I include it early. That's why I have that section of my TA report with the attachment. And so there's also a practice, I think, with this board that you guys do first and second readings and then adoptions. You did that with the buy recycle policy. I think you did it with a handful of other policies that you've accepted this year. Certainly have no expectations for you to comprehensively review a policy manual and adopt by Monday. I think that's why I wanna make sure that it's included in my report for you to review. And then whether we have discussions in a meeting or we had discussions like you and I have had, Harry, about the financial policies. So you're informed for when we actually eventually get to a selectmen's meeting where we're asking for approval. And I think with collective bargaining agreements, I think that's also why we have the pre-negotiation meeting as well. Setting the table with the five of you, hey, we're going to negotiate with the police officers. This is where I think that they're gonna be, where do you guys want the negotiating position to be? And then we come, we enter into those negotiations with those parameters, and then we come back with what was tentatively agreed upon between the town and the union. So, I think this is a timing challenge as well. We don't publish the agenda until Thursday, giving departments and members of the community maximum amount of time to have an opportunity to be on the agenda. I think if you're asking for more time, we're going to hear that in terms of efficiency of local government, right? So, I think that we'll have to make sure that we communicate this new practice with town departments and the community. This will slow down the business a little bit of the select board, which that may be fine if that's what the board chooses, but I just wanna be mindful of, we've got work to do. You could technically ask for more time to review this if you wanted to. We give this to you on Thursday.
Not everything, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's the big stuff.
Well, this is pretty big. We're spending several $100,000 every other week for the warrant.
Right, that I understand. But I guess if the board wants to go through, I can always just ask for extra time to evaluate something.
Yep.
We'll postpone it that way, rather than having the information up front, so I don't have to do that. I can do that.
Well, I just wanna reiterate the point with collective bargaining agreements, there's not a lot that changes with those. We've got policies that have been on the books for however long. When we adjust those usually end up being ratified into the bargaining agreements. What we're talking about when we're in negotiations is wages, overall working conditions and benefits, but the principal bargaining agreements are either rooted in Mass General or federal law or town policy. And then we're having discussions about, I hate to say it, but the smaller pieces, 1 or 2 articles within 30 article collective bargaining agreement. So, and usually those come in form of, as Jen mentioned, kind of the highlights of, this is what we have for the DPW union, this is what they asked for, this is what we agreed upon.
Okay.
Or we've been working towards policy conversations that we've had kind of ongoing since Ally's been on. We haven't adopted the financial policies yet, and we haven't adopted the HR policies yet, but a lot of that conversation has been ongoing since Ally started in the summer and the fall, just as far as guidelines for everything and trying to get the union contracts in consultation with each other.
This is an unusual year. We had 4 collective bargaining agreements in 1 year, and we're gonna have it again in 3 years. But this is not common to have so many unions up for negotiation at the same time. So this may feel like a lot, but I promise this isn't common. If you're all here in 3 years, we'll do it again. But you've got, whether it's bylaws, whether it's bargaining agreements, whether it's policies, this has been a very busy year for the select board. So there's probably, because I feel it a little bit too, there's probably some burnout in terms of reading policies, reading legalese language. I think after tonight, I think well, after some of the policy talk in the next couple of weeks, but this is the last CBA that we'll discuss in executive session tonight until next year. We'll get some policies done, the bylaws are submitted to the Attorney General's office. You guys are now a legal board in terms of Mass General Law, saw that legislation was signed by the governor. So a lot of the big stuff is done, now hopefully we can do some, this isn't wood at all, but we can do some fun stuff after this.
And Harry, I don't wanna dismiss your concerns at all, because I felt in at times, not so much this year in previous boards, that I didn't feel like I had adequate time, and I relied a lot more heavily on the administration to highlight, or the department heads to highlight the high level things. I think I still do that, and apart from the contracts, which I think are tricky because of the moving pieces. But for the policies and everything, I try really, really hard to give it to us well in advance, to provide opportunities for us to look at it on our own. Austin walked through the financial policies with us in a meeting. Ally's been in to do half or a little bit more of the HR policies with us. She'll come back and do them probably next meeting to finish out, and then provide probably another meeting before we vote. I try very hard to provide.
This is not about your effort as the chairperson. This is about my effort, wanting to do my due diligence for the town and having the time to do it.
Right, and I understand.
That's what that is
I
about,
understand.
but I also have what I call a veto vote. So if things aren't here and I don't like it, I will just request, if the board's okay with that, cause I'll request that it be postponed until I have enough time to review it. Now, that's probably not gonna happen a lot, but that was my point of bringing it to the board.
I appreciate it.
I think that's well within your rights as a member to, like you said, you're representing constituents, and if you don't feel you have enough information, then I would respect your
And I'm just trying to
request to
avoid
get
that,
more
we're trying to
information.
get the information early, that's all,
No,
so,
I-
it's okay.
yeah.
And I just wanna reiterate that on, if it is something that you feel like you need more, that, it's an action requested item or something and you need more information, by all means, on Fridays, even though the offices are closed to the public, reach out to Austin. He's here and will be able to either find the information or say, hey, maybe we should pause this or hold on to it. Reach out to me if you feel like it's really something that you're not comfortable on. At all. Like I said, there's a few things that I feel kind of strongly about that are time sensitive, and just by the nature of the timing, I would rather not delay, but I think for the most part, we've been, as a board, very amenable to the conversations and providing opportunity for, so I'm sorry if anyone feels differently, but
Don't be sorry, it's not personal.
no, and I'm not taking it personally, but I just
don't
want.
hesitate, cause I've there's definitely been an occasion here or there where I have felt like I need more information, I don't have enough, I need to do more reading on it to make a decision, so.
I don't wanna feel like I'm rubber stamping something, that I'm doing that just to get it done.
Yeah.
And the town didn't put me here for that, so that's why I'm saying that. Okay,
Thank you, Harry.
thank you.
So is there any other business to come before us before executive session? I believe we have our next meeting, will be Thursday, April 11th. That will be a joint meeting with FinCom to discuss, warrant articles. We'll place them and look for, I don't know if FinCom will, vote on them or not. Then we have our regular scheduled meeting Tuesday, April 16th. That's a Tuesday because Monday is the Patriots' Day holiday. And then April 29th. And then May 11th is annual town meeting.
Are we gonna discuss how we gonna handle that going forward, cause this will probably be a big town meeting. Are we meeting early? We'll get into the details, but we'll get that later.
Yeah, generally we meet at least half an hour before. I think after we see the warrant and the articles and everything, on the 11th, then we can decide if we wanna meet, an hour before or if half an hour is good or what. So then I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session, not, we do need to return to open, don't we? To ratify?
Yep.
So to adjourn to executive session for reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Topic, AFSCME Clerical Union FY 25 through 26 collective bargaining agreement to return to open session. Is there a motion?
Oh,
Thank you. Second,
second,
roll call, Harry.
Second aye.
That's an aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Okay, back in open session, it's 9:38 PM. I would entertain a motion to ratify the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Rutland and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, as presented from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any conversation? Roll call, Harry.
second aye.
That's an aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. Any other business? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Look at everything we've done this year.
Roll call. We have a motion.
Second aye.
Can you make second?
Second,
No roll call.
second aye.
That's an aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. We're adjourned at 9:39 PM.